Finally, being radically open-minded requires you to have an accurate self-assessment of your own and other strengths and weaknesses. This is where understanding something about how the brain works and the different psychometric assessments that can help you discover what your brain is like comes in. To get the best results out of yourself and others, you must understand that people are wired very differently. So we are in Life Principles, putting it all together, excuse me, which is a new section. And we only just started reading that one. We had to talk about the 5-step process, which is setting goals, identifying and not tolerating problems, diagnosing problems, coming up with designs to get around them, and then doing the tasks required. I had to talk about wanting to set up principles and have be able to check on what works and what doesn't work, and create these little rules for yourself, just like a computer has algorithms. So let's continue. We were talking about radical open-mindedness, and let's have a look. What else was it? Yes, so the goals and the radical open-mindedness, and I thought there was something else that was highlighted in bold, but that's only the 5-step process. So let's continue where we left off, and I am looking forward to doing some more reading for you and sharing my thoughts and getting in touch with you at the end. There's already quite a few people on Bigo, so Salman and Jim Waterson and Leon666, Kelly Grizzard, and the Miz sent some hearts. So thank you, and great to have you all here. Let's continue. Finally, being radically open-minded requires you to have an accurate self-assessment of your own and other strengths and weaknesses. This is where understanding something about how the brain works and the different psychometric assessments that can help you discover what your brain is like comes in. To get the best results out of yourself and others, you must understand that people are wired very differently. In a nutshell, learning how to make decisions in the best possible way and learning to have the courage to make them comes from A, going after what you want, B, failing and reflecting well through radical open-mindedness, and C, evolving to become ever more capable and less fearful. In the final chapter of this section, Learn How to Make Decisions Effectively, I shared some more granular principles for how to do all the above and weigh your options in specific situations to determine the right path to follow. So we are all very, very different, and it is important to understand that and to know how to react to people and how to deal with other people. And it is very challenging sometimes on your own. Sometimes you need a little bit of help to be able to understand the other person. And there are tools out there for that. And in an earlier section of the book, Ray Dalio spoke about that quite a lot. So you want to be able to go after what you want. You want to fail and reflect well through open-mindedness and changing or evolving to become ever more capable and less fearful. So I used to be in a business coaching program a long time ago. Can't believe how long ago that was. And it would talk about setting a goal and then testing the different, or coming up with a way to run that, do the things that you want to do in order to achieve that goal, and then see whether it worked or not. And if it hasn't, make adjustments, and then go back to setting a new goal once you've achieved it. And so you keep making adjustments until you've achieved that goal, and then you set the new goal. And this is what our whole life is. We start off as babies with some very, very basic ideas for what we want. So we want to take the pen in front of us. There's a pen right there. And so we set the goal of what we want to do. We want to get the pen. So we have to put our hand forward. But we're not very good at it yet. So we might miss the pen the first time around, and we keep adjusting until we achieve the goal. And then we keep doing that again and again and again. And very often we miss the point that we've already been very, very good at doing this from the time that we're a child, and that we can and need to do the same thing as we get older, and that we can do the same thing as we get older. Let me just quickly check. I think the computer is telling me that it would like a little bit more battery. So let's charge the computer a little bit. Let's stable on. I thought we still had a little bit left, but we have not. So a goal that I had just then, very simple one. the computer showed me that it was running out of battery. And so I figured out a solution, which was charge it. And now I'm testing to see whether that's working. I've plugged it in correctly, so it is working again, and it is no longer complaining, and it is telling me that it is actually charging. So a very good example. So thank you, computer, for running out at just exactly this moment, which allowed me to demonstrate. Yay. Okay, let's continue. You can, of course, do all of these things alone, but if you understood anything about the concept of radical open-mindedness, it should be obvious that going it alone will only take you so far. We all need others to help us triangulate and get to the best possible decisions, and to help us see our weaknesses objectively and compensate for them. More than anything else, your life is affected by the people around you and how you interact with each other. Your ability to get what you want when working with others who want the same things is much greater than your ability to get those things by yourself. Yet we haven't talked about how groups should operate to be most effective. That's what we'll do in work principles. So it is very important to realize that not everybody needs to be on your group or should be in your group. And so you want to make sure that you are with the right people. So here it talks about, yes, you definitely need the group dynamic. You need radical open-mindedness, and the book has been pointing in that direction the whole time. But it says, when working with others who want the same things, and this is very often what happens, that we will either not be able to very well and accurately describe what it is that we want to achieve, what our goals are, what our visions are. And so we get people who jump on board who don't understand the vision. Or we end up with people who want something completely different or want to do their own thing. And this can be a bit of a challenge when we are then working with those people. So, very good example. I met with somebody not that long ago, and they wanted to sell me on their vision. They wanted me to have a look at something, and I did. But I really struggled to be able to understand the vision. The vision was, I think it's a good vision. I think there's a lot of really good things in there, but it is really challenging for me to be able to understand what the actual outcome or direction is from that. So sometimes it is really important to make sure that you go back and practice your communication, learn about your communication, and figure those things out so that you can be crystal clear when you're explaining to people. And excuse me, they're more likely to jump on board and follow your vision when you have complete clarity of what that vision is. Okay, work principles is about people working together, because the power of a group is so much greater than the power of an individual. The principles that follow are likely even more important than those we covered up to this point. In fact, I wrote them first and then wrote life principles in order to help others make sense of the approach I was implicitly applying in running Bridgewater. My work principles are basically the life principles you just read applied to groups. I will show you principle by principle how an actual, practical, believably weighted decision-making system converts independent thinking into effective group decision-making. I believe that such a system can work to make any kind of organization, business, government, philanthropic, both more effective and more satisfying to belong to. And that brings us to the end of that section. Excuse me for a second, quickly. Wipe nose. I was in the cold, and so when you are in the cold, you start to eliminate, which is good. I hope these principles will help you struggle well and get all the joy you can out of life. And then there's a summary and table of life principles, which is a summary of what we've just gone through. Oh, that's a lot. So that's 2 pages, 3 pages. And then that brings us to part 3, work principles. And we've got a summary of that one as well. So we'll go past the summary. We'll just read it. Oh, that's a lot. It's never ending. Wow. Okay. For any group or organization to function well, its work principles must be aligned with its members' life principles. I don't mean that they must be aligned on everything, but I do mean that they have to be aligned on the most important things, like the mission they're on and how they will be with each other. If people in an organization feel that alignment, they will treasure their relationships and work together harmoniously. Its culture will permeate everything they do. If they don't, they will work for different, often conflicting goals, and will be confused about how they should be with each other. For that reason, it pays for all organizations, companies, governments, foundations, schools, hospitals, and so on to spell out their principles and values clearly and explicitly, and to operate by them consistently. Those principles and values aren't vague slogans like the customer always comes first, or we should strive to be the best in our industry, but a set of concrete directives anyone can understand, get aligned on, and carry out. As we shift our attention from life principles to work principles, I will explain how we went from achieving these alignments at Bridgewater and how that affected our results. But first, I want to explain how I think about organizations. And so you want to make sure that it's not just a blanket statement or that it is something that everybody can't really get behind. Yesterday, I saw something very, very interesting. I saw an ad for a university, and this university is one of those smaller universities. It is not the University of Sydney, for example, or the University of New South Wales, or one of the larger universities here in Australia. It's for a university called University of Western Sydney, which has the reputation for being a good university, but obviously it's not an Ivy League university. It's not one of the top universities. And I was very, very surprised to see that they had advertised, and that the slogan of the advertisement was #1 university in the world. Now, I found that very, very interesting because obviously there are ranking systems and there are people who will talk about Cambridge and Harvard and all of these different universities that are the top of the top. And I don't think Western Sydney could ever compete. Maybe one day, maybe they have certain advantages, I'm not sure. But it is very difficult to base what they are, where they're coming from with this. It's really quite interesting. And so we want to make sure that we are going to not just use blanket statements like this, because there are going to be lots of people who are going to be put off by a statement such as University of Western Sydney is the #1 university in the world, because people know that there are rankings and that there are certain people who will agree, and there's lots of them that will say, for example, that the Harvards and the Stanfords and the Oxfords and the Cambridge are going to be the top universities in the world. So it is a very interesting phenomenon when we just make blanket statements like that, rather than digging into the depth of what we are really looking at. So let's have a look at what Ray Dalio calls and thinks of organizations. We actually have a bit of a diagram. So we've got a little person there, and then we've got goals, machine. Let's have a look. Goals, machine, outcomes, culture, and people. There we go. And that's going to be in mirror image for everybody on Big O, but that's okay. Okay, here we go. An organization is a machine consisting of two major parts, culture and people. Each influences the other because the people who make up an organization determine the kind of culture it has, and the culture of the organization determines the kind of people who fit in. A great organization has both great people and a great culture. Companies that get progressively better over time have both. Nothing is more important or more difficult than to get the culture and people right. And I'm a firm believer that the leadership is going to determine the culture. And based on that, they need to choose the right people. And choosing the right people will allow the culture to develop by itself. And so you really want to be able to focus on the right people, and you will start to automatically create a really good culture. It needs to come from the top. It needs to come from the management. But choosing the right people will allow the culture to actually happen, as opposed to when you do it the opposite way around and you want to get a certain culture, but you put in the wrong people for that culture, then the whole thing is never going to happen. The culture will never develop the way that it needs to. Part B, great people have both character and great capabilities. By great character, I mean they are radically truthful, radically transparent, and deeply committed to the mission of the organization. By great capabilities, I mean they have the abilities and skills to do their jobs excellently. People who have one without the other are dangerous and should be removed from the organization. People who have both are rare and should be treasured. So, as I said, you want to really choose the right people. Excuse me. And so you want people who have really great characters and great capabilities, and that will automatically start to create an amazing culture. And part C, great cultures bring problems and disagreements to the surface and solve them well. And they love imagining and building great things that haven't been built before. Doing that sustains their evolution. In our case, we do that by having an idea meritocracy that strives for meaningful work and meaningful relationships through radical truth and radical transparency. By meaningful work, I mean work that people are excited to get their heads into. And by meaningful relationships, I mean those in which there is genuine caring for each other, like an extended family. I find that these reinforce each other in that being radically truthful and radically transparent with each other makes both the work and the relationships go better. By constantly looking down on the machine, its managers can objectively compare the outcome it produces with their goals. If those outcomes are consistent with those goals, then the machine is working effectively. If the outcomes are inconsistent with the goal, then something is wrong with either the design of the machine or the people who are a part of it. And the problem needs to be diagnosed so the machine can be modified. As laid out in Chapter 2 of Life Principles, this ideally happens in a 5-step process. Having clear goals, identifying the problem preventing the goals from being achieved, diagnosing what parts of the machine, for example, which people or which designers are not working well, and 4, designing changes, and 5, doing what is needed. This is the fastest and most effective way that an organization improves. And I can tell that my cold shower was not as long ago as usual because the nose is running now as opposed to when it usually does earlier in the morning. Okay, so it brings us back to this really important point that there is this 5-step process for achieving any goal by going to have a look at the goal and making adjustments, finding solutions, making adjustments, finding solutions, making adjustments until you find the solution that will actually tip you over into the place where you actually achieve the goal. So we might leave it at that. This is going to be a longer section. It goes on for a little bit more. Ooh, it goes on for quite a little bit more. So we will continue with this tomorrow. Hope you enjoyed what we've been able to read so far. I have been enjoying a lot, and I love being here, and I love having you all join. Scott Stone joined, and SOS joined, and a couple of other really amazing people. So thank you for that. Wimbledon sent some hearts. It is great having all of you on the Bigo as well, and we've got some people on Zoom. So if you enjoyed that, and if you'd like to be able to watch the replays, if you'd like to read the book from the start together with me, you can do that on YouTube at the Passive Cashflow Club, and I would love to have you there. You can leave your comments, you can subscribe, and if you subscribe, you'll also be able to get access to the questions and answers that we've been doing lately. So that will notify you of when we update a video with the answers to your questions. So if you have any questions, whether it's on the economy or whether it's on Ray Dalio Principles or some of the other books that we read earlier, Rich Dad Poor Dad, The Art of Thinking Clearly, feel free to ask your questions. You can do that by going to Instagram. You can find me at business_team_6_official. And yes, would love to hear from you and get to know more of you. It's one thing to just talk to the phone and the computer, and it's another to actually have a conversation with somebody on Instagram, for example. I will follow yeah, I'll follow everybody that commented and sent a little heart or something on Bigo in just a moment. But my Bigo is very spammy, so better to reach out on Instagram, and then we can answer those questions and put those up. And if you're subscribed, you'll know when that has happened. Even if it haven't asked a question, it might be a question that is relevant to you and can help you solve one of your investing challenges. So feel free to subscribe to the YouTube channel, The Passive Cash Flow Club. If you're interested in our games nights or networking events or other events that we run, we also have simulation nights and all of those different kinds of things. If you're interested in that, also reach out on Instagram and we will get back in touch with you and let you know how you can join us. And we would love to have you for those. We both have online and offline. So even if you're not in Sydney, where I am right now, you can still come and join us for some of these events. And we would love to see you there. So I'm going to leave it at that. Hope to see you not just here every day, but also elsewhere. Have an absolutely amazing day today. Remember to make the switch to unlock your rich, because there's an easier and faster way of doing absolutely everything. If you keep doing things in the same way, you're going to get the same results. So as Ray Dalio just said in this section, you want to set the goal, you want to test out different solutions to it, and you keep coming up with new solutions if it's not working until you find the one that does work. So make that switch, unlock your rich, and I'm going to wish you a great day. We'll put this up onto the YouTube so that you can watch the recording if you would like. And then I'm going to go over to Big O and say hello to everybody there. And I'll see you all again tomorrow at 8 a.m. Sydney time for another reading.